Okay, so the next two kits that I'm going to show you are the winter candle centerpiece kit and also the single winter candle kit. I think that's what they're called. They're the kits with the candles and the foliages and the cones. So I'm going to show you the larger centerpiece version, so I'm not boring you with the exact same advice and tips for both. But this one here has been burning for a little while. This is the single. I'm going to show you the centerpiece. I have already got my gravel in my pot. So in your kit, you will have a huge bag of gravel, if you've got the larger one. You will have your 3 or 1 tapered ivory candles. You will have your moss, you will have your foliages, you will have your cones, and you will also have some moss pins, which I will explain the use of in a moment. And you will have your twigs and your dried thyme. Now these are probably one of my favourite kits in the collection for December. I just think they're so effective. They are so kind of quite rustic and festive, but minimalist in that they're not too over the top. Yeah, I'm really chuffed with them. I hope you like them. Yeah, let's start. Okay, so I've put my gravel in already because it takes a bit of time to kind of scoop and scoop and scoop. So basically all you're doing is putting your saucer, your pot on your saucer, and then just adding in your gravel. All of the gravel that is in your kit goes in. It's all been measured for you, so you just put it all in. And then we're going to add in our tapered candles. So I usually give my tapered candles a trim so that I've got about just under 1 centimetre of wick at the top. And then you simply put them in the gravel like so. Now I tend to do mine in a kind of, that needs trimming, in a kind of sort of triangle shape, like this, but obviously you can do them however you wish. Once the candles are in, we can now add the moss. So you'll have 2 different types of moss. You'll have your bun moss and your flat moss, which is sort of more woodlandy feeling one. Then you simply add in your moss around your candles. So I tend to start with the bun moss, which is the sort of more chunkier one, and then I add in the flat moss around it just to sort of fill in the gaps. Don't worry if the candles start going on the wonk, it's fine. We can sort of rejig them at the end. So that's the bun moss. And then adding in your flat moss. You know, I like it when it sort of drapes over the sides, so just don't worry about making it too perfect. Okay, just a little bit more. So that is your moss. So that also supports the candles as well as the gravel. Okay, and now we can start adding in our foliages before we then put the pine cones in and the sort of dried twigs and thyme. So in your kits you will have your pine, your fresh pine, and also some asparagus fern, which is a really sort of light, sort of feathery kind of texture. It does have slight sharp-ish thorns on it, nothing major, but if it catches you it might sort of be a bit like, ooh, but nothing sort of to worry about. Okay, I did have my secateurs, but I don't now, so I'm going to use scissors. Anyway, so adding in your pine, so you'll have little sections that you can cut down. So you're sort of looking at cutting it down into small sections like this, no bigger than that. You can also add in the smaller bits, like this. So you're sort of cutting stems of the pine off the kind of central stem. I'm going to cut this down, it's too big, so just cutting it down. That's already fine. Okay, and then you're going to take off probably the bottom inch pine needles, so you've got a nice clean stem, and that's what's going to go into the moss. I like to work in a kind of clockwise fashion, so all of my pine will be pointing the same way. So the top of my pine is all pointing the same way. So I just add it on the edge, and then the next piece I'll put on top. So again, the next piece, the top of of this piece sort of just slightly sits on top of the stem of the previous piece. So you're almost creating a sort of little kind of wreath, I guess. It's happening in a circular motion. Now, if you don't want to do it like that, you don't have to at all. It really doesn't make any difference. If you want it to look a bit wilder and a less sort of wreath-like, then that's absolutely fine. And then the last piece, just there. And then I'm going to add in my asparagus fern. So again, with the asparagus fern, you can break it down into little sections, just little pieces like this, and that can just lay on top. Doesn't really need to go in any kind of set way. It's really delicate. It's almost sort of invisible in a way, but you can see it adding that texture, if that makes sense. You'll see when you add it in that it just takes it up a level. Can let some of it hang over the side. The contrast with the terracotta is lovely. And if you're finding it's not sticking, you can start using your moss pins. So your moss pins are basically going into the moss and they're just holding down your foliages. And if you can see them, they're slightly silver in colour, but don't worry because you can hide those with a pine cone, so you won't be able to see them. So just adding in a little bit more of the asparagus fern. Now obviously we'll go through all the kind of sort of safety elements of it in a second, but the aim of the game is to get all the foliages as low down as kind of possible really in your in the base on top of the moss. Okay, so I think we're nearly there on the asparagus fern. I'll just pop a little bit more in there. And then any sections you want to pin down, you can. This is all looking fine. It's not particularly sort of loose or falling out. So I'm going to go in with my twigs next. So you'll have your birch twigs, and you simply just need to break them down into sections like this. So, for example, some longer ones here. You just need breaking down. Now, the kind of crucial thing with the birch is to sort of do it pointing outwards, so it's not right next to a candle. Now, if we start going through some candle kit care and, you know, sort of precautions, the candles that you receive each are 8-hour burn candles, so they are a decent, lengthy, really high quality candle. Now, obviously, after 8 hours, they are going to burn down. So please, 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 never, ever, ever leave your centerpiece on its own. Please, 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 please. The main thing about this is to have it on a table during dinner, during drinks, you know, when you've got people over or your family on Christmas Day. So just, yeah, be mindful, never leave it unattended. I know I'm teaching you to suck eggs, and I know I sound ridiculous, but I just have to kind of get it out there that, you know, you're dealing with damp moss, so that will be fine. But you are also dealing with some dried elements with candles. So just be mindful of, you know, making sure it's blown out at the right time. And if you have your candle kit on for 8 hours in one go, if you choose to do that, you know, it's so easy to replace those candles with some other ones. You know, you can get them on obviously lots of different places, but just sort of try and pick up the best quality you can with regards to knowing that it has a decent burn time, because you'll be surprised if you buy sort of cheap tapered dining candles. They are cheap because they have a quick burn time, which means that, you know, you could stick this on, be cooking dinner, have it on your island, and then the next minute, you know, things are on fire. So just, yeah, please, just so that I sleep at night, just be a bit mindful of that, and just never, ever, ever, ever leave it unattended. And I'll be quiet now. Okay, so those are the birch twigs. And now we're going to add in the dried thyme. You simply just need to snap this with your fingers. And with this, I like to sort of lay it almost flat along the base of the kit. And it just adds a really lovely kind of grey-green tone. Again, keeping it sort of away, if you can, to the candles. You know, don't have it really high, so cut the pieces up, or snap the pieces off quite small, so that it's quite nice and low down, almost like on a sort of forest floor. Okay, and now we're going to add in the pine cones. So in the single kit you will have 5 miniature little alder cones, and in the centerpiece kit you will have 2 of the sort of larger ones, and then 5 of the mini ones. So I like to kind of cluster, but I'm not going to cluster with my big ones. I'm going to put 1 there and maybe 1 here, and then I will cluster 3 down here at the front together, sort of nestle them in amongst everything, and then I might put 1 at the back, and then 1 just here on the side. And then if you find that, you know, anything sort of sticking up, or you want to pin it down, simply use your moss pins. You just need to push it into the moss, and it then secures something in place. So whatever you want to push down, you can with these little moss pins. And then, you know, you really can't see them, they're like a matte silver. But if you are worried, you can just put some, you know, move some of the thyme around, or stick a, you know, a pine cone on top, an alder cone, sorry, not pine cone. And that is about it. So those are your 2 candle kits. Again, please, please, please be mindful of candles, never leave them unattended. But, you know, more importantly, just really enjoy it. I really hope that these kits provide like a lovely sort of talking point or a centerpiece for your home and for your families this Christmas. So there you have it, the candle kits.